Good evening, and welcome to the Wakefield School Committee meeting of Tuesday, March 24th, 2015. I'd like to start the meeting by reading our mission statement, and it is the mission of the Wakefield Public Schools to educate and inspire all students to be lifelong learners who are meaningful contributors to society and meet their academic, social, civic, and physical potential. As we always do, I'd like to invite anybody from the public who has anything they wish to say. They could have the floor. Seeing nobody, I'd like to move on to our student spotlight. Would Alex and Justin come up to the table, please? Dr. Reich?
Yes. So it is my privilege to recognize these two young men, these outstanding Wakefield High School students, junior Alex Darcy and sophomore Justin Sullivan. I had the privilege of being notified by Vice Chairperson Kate Morgan a couple weeks ago. She brought to my attention on one Friday afternoon as I was driving home that there were two young men that really went above and beyond, she thought, you know, it would be a good thing to recognize them. And after hearing their story, I thought it was appropriate to bring them to the school committee. They assisted a local hockey rink owner one early winter morning before practice. When I heard how early it was, I really was impressed, because I think it was like 5:45 in the morning. The owner of the rink seriously injured himself, I think to the point where he tore his shoulder or broke a bone, actually. And Mr. Darcy and Mr. Sullivan assisted him in setting up the rink for the day. The owner was so grateful for their selflessness and generosity that he reached out to Ms. Morgan. And I applaud, we all applaud Mr. Darcy and Mr. Sullivan for modeling the Wakefield way. And a lot of times we forget about these. To me, these are examples of what we really should be recognizing students for. It's great if you can hit home runs and score goals and achieve well in the classroom, but there's something to be said for being quality people and human beings. So I want to take a moment to recognize and give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
I don't know if the committee wants to comment, then I'd love to get a photo with these men who are dressed better than I am tonight. So.
I'll comment.
Okay, Kate.
The man that you guys helped is extremely grateful. I think you have skating passes now for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's going to come in handy.
He wanted to be here tonight, but he ran into a prior engagement. But I just want to thank you again on his behalf. It's awesome to hear stories like this of just good, nice people.
Thank you.
I think it's your actions without being asked to do something speak miles. I know the little things even at home when someone empties a dishwasher without being asked to do it. It means so much more when you just step in because you know it's the right thing to do. I think that's what gains you this recognition. Good citizens. You're right up there with our mission statement.
That's right.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to hear good things going on with students, and because we hear oftentimes things, especially with teenage boys, so it's really good to hear all the positive things. So good going. Glad you guys are in our community.
Thank you.
You make Wakefield proud, guys. Good job.
Okay, you want to take your picture?
Right, yeah, and I have to say, they looked a little scared when I called them down to the office. I see a little bit of fear.
My teacher told me I was in trouble.
It's not comfortable to get a call at the office when the superintendent wants to see you. I'd love to just get a quate photo. I don't know, Chairman, if you want to join us. Or,
Sure.
Or Kate Morgan.
I thought Kate should go.
Yeah,
really.
Kate maybe should join us. Okay, you guys go. Let's just put a photo in the middle here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys. Take care. And thank you to their parents as well. You obviously did something right here.
And Next is, we'd like to give you a quick update from Mr. Weiner as to how the park testing and our computer network is all going.
So do you mind if I just jump in for a second? I had some questions from the committee, and there's obviously questions in the community, how things are going with the first, we are now in week 2 of park, and I thought it would be appropriate for Mr. Weiner to give us just a brief update. We'll do a much bigger update at the end of the testing seasons. We'll get input from teachers. We're soliciting input right now from we'd like to survey some students, but I think it's appropriate, given that we're in the midst of we just launched our testing, to hear his perspective around the technology and the huge change for us to now take our statewide assessment on devices. So, Mr. Weiner.
Great, thank you. So far, we've had about a week and a half of testing so far. Every school except for the high school has gone through some, not all of it, but some testing sessions. We've had no major issues. There's been a few minor issues, but nothing that hasn't been solved within a couple of minutes for any issue that's come up. No tests have been impacted. You know, kids will, we rebooted a Chromebook, it comes right back up where they left off, so it hasn't really negatively impacted anybody. People went right with it and rolled. We have the Chromebooks working in the kiosk mode, which was one of the few challenges we did have, was getting people used to using them in kiosk mode when they're not testing, because they have to stay in that mode the whole time. So you know, getting out of it so they can use the Chromebook for regular schoolwork was one of the challenges we did have, which isn't really testing related. The network at all the schools has been handling the traffic with no problems as far as we know so far. Devices connecting to and using Proctor caching servers is working great. We started out with, training teachers the week prior, and they did a great job, working with us. And we've had someone at every building. We've had a technology person, a media specialist, and some technology teachers at every building during testing time, which has worked out well. So it's a group effort. So everybody's doing their part. I think the hardest parts for any school has been the first days of testing per grade, just because people aren't used to the management's environment and things like that. But once they get through that first, starting a test and they get into it, everybody handles it well. And the second day is easier, and the third day is, almost like we've been doing it all along. It's hard because they do it once a year. Everybody does it once a year, so you don't get comfortable with it, and then they change it the next year. So. Let's see. We after every session, we've kind of sat with the different teachers and tried to talk through. Here's some things we found to make it easier for the next time, and so on. The challenges the only two real challenges we've run into were if students were absent the first day or the second day and they returned to school, they completed sessions with their class later sessions. And they had completed the tests, which were incomplete. So we were able to unlock those tests, and actually Park recognized that as an issue, and they changed the way their software works, and that can't happen anymore. So if you go to close out of a test before you're finished with it, if you missed a whole section, it tells you now you can't close out because you haven't completed that. So we did give feedback on that the first day, and hopefully that feedback resulted in a better test for kids too. There was a text-to-speech issue that we had to work through as well with the Department of Ed, and so we worked through that with them as well. To get that feature, which was supposed to be an accessibility feature for everybody, for math tests, and so we had to work through that with them as well because it wasn't available at first, and their feature that was available for everybody had to be added manually, which they didn't tell anyone. So we worked through that with them, and now that's going to happen for the rest of the tests. And so anything we've run into, again, we've been able to kind of work with, and the kids have been great, the teachers have been great, and I think we have a successful, so far, so I don't want to knock on the table. So far it's been pretty successful, so yeah.
Could you tell me, when you do run up against a glitch,
Yeah.
these tests are timed, so does the clock stop while you fix the glitch and then pick up again?
The clock can't stop for everyone, but that student definitely gets their time back. I mean, it's been recognized where you have to reboot a Chromebook, but again, it's a minute. And students honestly have been finishing and for the most part, have been finishing the test in, I don't know, a lot less than the regular time. I don't want to say half, but some of them have.
And when we spoke last week, you You hadn't been in all the elementary schools. Are they all gone now?
We have now, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the elementary schools and the middle school, yeah. And so far, so far so good. They've
At
been-
least half of each, they've taken at least that portion of the assessment during this window. There's still more to go, but every school, right, has had that opportunity. And so largely, we haven't had major connection issues. There was one issue at the Dole Bear that involved, maybe you can speak to it a little.
Yeah, sure. So it was, what happened basically was they used the devices downstairs in the, it was the third grade downstairs. And when they moved the devices upstairs, they were still connected to the access points downstairs, so they didn't have a strong enough signal to connect. So we thought there was a problem, but as soon as we realized that, we were able to get them right back on again.
Of course,
had
the
to
school
boot-
where your children go.
Right. Yeah. This year, though. Yeah, we just basically had to boot the access points up in the upstairs floor, and they picked up all those devices, and they connected right away right after that. So we had to postpone that test for a little, till the afternoon, but when we did, it worked out fine. And today, testing there was perfect because we didn't move the devices, we had the kids move instead, and it was a lot easier. So,
Questions from the committee? Tom?
No, I don't really have a question. We've heard a lot about, getting ready for this in the last, really since the beginning of the year. And I think it's a testament to you, Jeff, and the whole IT team that going from where we were in September, having a pretty difficult start, having not even remotely ready for Park, but having a very difficult start to the school year. Your work, the IT department of the school, and certainly the IT department of the town really came together as a good team and got us where we are this week. And you all should be congratulated, and we appreciate that, not only as parents, but certainly as the school committee, I'm sure. There's a lot that goes into this, nights, weekends, headaches, but it certainly shows, and thank you, and please pass it along to the rest of the IT staff that we've come a long way.
well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Evan?
My comments will be a lot shorter because I think Mr. Markham hit on a lot of what I was going to talk about. You've done a great job. I just want to add that there are a lot of districts who are having a much more difficult time with respect to IT infrastructure, dealing with the park assessment than Wakefield is. So it's a testament to you and Dr. Strike and your entire team. And great job.
Great, thank you.
Can I just echo just one thing? Also, I want to commend our teachers because this is a monumental shift from what they know, paper, pencil. And I know how, I think we have a teacher in the room now who can talk about what that means. But our staff really has, as difficult as it is, they've been very open. They've had to get up to speed very quickly. They've been very receptive to the support. We've had a lot of last-minute meetings and pulling people to make sure we're all, so I really do commend our staff, our principals, our media specialists have been on the ground. We've had to move their time. The first time you do anything is going to be a challenge. So, but I have and then of course our students. This is not what they're not used to taking assessments on a computer, and so it's a big shift. I think about our third graders. It's the first time taking the state assessment, and they're taking it on Chromebooks. So. I know kudos to everyone. I think, again, as I've said before, I caution the takeaway from the results because it is the first time. But I think it is a monumental feat for us to say that we were as ready as we could be, and any issues seemed to be more related with the assessment itself than Wakefield's lack of infrastructure, which I think we would have all said. And and also kudos to Elaine Hughes, who many years ago was getting us ready for this. And then Jeff's just picked up the ball and ran with it. So it's and to Jeff's point, to Evan's point, there are many other districts are struggling with their infrastructure. Of course, I don't want to jinx myself now, but I am proud of the work that they've done in preparation for this. So.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
If I could, what the superintendent just said really struck a chord, and I probably should have said it a moment ago, I guess as a point of personal, notion. I just came from, we had the parent-teacher conferences at the Greenwood School tonight. And that was one of the things that was talked about without, telling stories out of school. But one of the things that I think, one of the things that, on your point with regard to the teaching staff, we as parents were getting a fairly consistent message about how the teachers were preparing the students and trying to pace them and trying to get, sort of maintain an appropriate balance between the nervousness and getting ready to do something serious. And so what you just said, Steve, really struck me, to share the story that coming out of a parent-teacher conference tonight after having a fourth grader who is now, had a couple of days of this. It really speaks volumes about the professionalism of our staff in getting not only most importantly, the kids ready. You've got the backbone set, the teachers are getting the kids ready. And something I think that probably they would concede, at least my son did, that there was some apprehensiveness among the teaching staff, at least it seemed, because this was new for everyone. No one wants something to flop. No one wants a kid to be discouraged and harmed or upset in the middle of something that they think is really important and really valuable. So, you're absolutely right, Stephen. I just wanted to point that out from a parent perspective, that the teaching staff were really certainly right on top of what's going on this week, and it shows. The kids are probably balanced more so in their expectation. So that's pretty exciting.
Well, thank you for your such a smooth team effort on your department's part. Make sure you pass on our thanks.
Definitely.
It's great to hear that the students aren't running out of time as things look like right now. So that was a concern that I think we all had, that how would it go? And it sounds like it's going well. So thank you very much.
So far, so good. Thank you.
With the committee's indulgence, I would like to take things a little out of order and move on to 6B right now, the approval of field trip to Enterprise City, and C, the acceptance of a gift. We could do that? What?
I think we have it, don't we?
Oh, thank you.
You're up. We'll start for you. Want me to start?
Go ahead.
So this is the 8th year. I'm sitting here with Mr. McCroubry, lucky him, in thanking again the Grand Foundation for their generosity in supporting the Enterprise City trip. This has now 2,000 students, I estimated about in the district, have benefited from this program. Close to $50,000 that they've donated to us. And without it, we would not be able to run this program, looking at $45 a child to share to do it, and we've got it down to about $15, thanks to their generosity. So we are very, very appreciative of the Grand Foundation, time over time, again, coming out and really recognizing the quality of this program and the importance it is to our 6th graders. So very, very appreciative.
So, thank you, Liz. And, we're proud to do this. I mean, as Liz said, it's probably close to $50,000, and I guess it's a combination of things for us this year. We gave more this year than we had for the past 2 years, but the good news for the school is, I guess, is that there's about 300 kids this year. So we were a little bit concerned about, although it was more, we were a little bit concerned about the coverage and making sure that everybody could go. And Therese Jarmusic, who sits on the foundation board with me, and Liz has just told me as well, too, that there's other ways to make this up. So we're happy about that, but 290 some odd 6th grade students is a fantastic turnout. It's a great program. We're happy to do it. I think our donations to the Enterprise City program since inception, we missed a year, and I'm not sure if everybody went or not, but it's probably about 40% of what the foundation has done. So, we're excited about it. We like it. And if you'll just indulge me for a moment, somewhat related to this, but not entirely, I'm assuming that Mike has the check, because I never have to check with him. If he doesn't have it, I'm embarrassed. But along these lines, though, and I know you already accepted the donation, but the foundation also funded through a request from Jay Callahan for texts for what started out to be the banking program. There's a point to this, believe me. And that evolved into, originally going to be like 5 textbooks, and that evolved into 30 through his hard work that we were able to fund, that went into AP Economics, Principles of Business. I think Personal Finance goes in there, and my point is that $3,100 donation got into 4 classrooms, actually, which is really, Enterprise City is in the 6th grade. It's a classroom program. And kudos to Liz especially for putting it all together, but again, to the faculty that participates in the program. It's all ahead of time. There's some time at Enterprise City itself, but it's the faculty time that's really key to this thing, and being in the classroom means a lot. And I'll just finish my comments by saying that about 4 years ago, I guess the state, through legislation, created the Financial Literacy Trust Fund Board, which has done work mostly in gateway cities, but has dealt with veterans, dealt with the elderly, kids in the gateway cities. That's now evolved into, with Treasurer Goldberg, a financial literacy task force. And I would put the Wakefield school system at the head of the class for that, because for a lot of reasons, Enterprise City being among the foremost, you guys have always been at the head of the group for that. So I'm hopeful that we can get some recognition for that too. But, you know, again, it's an easy donation for us. It makes a lot of sense. The kids have got a lot out of it. We're talking a long time now, several issues through. So, you know, it's great for us. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to make the donation and represent the board for that as well. So, thank you.
Well, on behalf of the committee, we have chosen that I would speak for us all, that, you know, we certainly couldn't do this without the Grant Foundation's help, and it's very much appreciated. It's a great program. I was curious, I went there on the pilot year.
Yep, I remember.
Has it changed much since then?
Location has changed, and then this year we actually right now are taking some time as a grade level to kind of sit down and look at the changes. They've made a few changes with businesses and things like that. But for the most part, yeah, it stayed exactly the same. You know, they have to interview for their jobs and then run the city. So I think just with times, I mean, we've changed a lot in 8 years. There's like a difference in technology and things like that. There's a credit union now instead of the bank and things like that. They're just trying to really, yeah. But everybody still wants to be the president of the bank because it's the highest paid position. So yeah, no, it's still, you know, relatively the same. I think they lost it's moved a little bit further away to Dover from where it was before. But no, yeah, pretty much the exact same touch. I know most of you have attended with me, so. It's great. It's been stressed out working with these kids and their businesses. But yeah, no, the kids, I have to tell you, the main reason we do it is because there's always a kid on the first day of school, you know, instead of telling me their name, is like, when are we going to Enterprise City? And I'm like, wait a minute, who are you? And who is your older brother or sister? Because you clearly have a sibling. And it's usually like, well, no, my dad had a great time on that trip.
Ooh, makes you really feel
mother,
old.
you know, so it's funny. And then, of course, it's like the first thing of back to school night, the parents are always asking, is it gonna happen again? And it's like, yeah, you know, we'll see. Hopefully, we can get everything in place. So that's where my
and
best
the
friend
letters
over
from
there
the kids
comes
are great.
in.
They're fun. Yeah, they are.
Yep. They take it really serious. It's nice for us too to kind of take some time at the end of the year to see them kind of step out of their roles, and they really, truly have that authentic experience. They believe it. You know, they're in that city like it's just as it is for adults. So it's a great opportunity for them. It's
a real world.
It is, yep.
Okay, again, tribute to the faculty, and the letters from the kids are, you know, you're getting letters from kids in the 6th grade that are really, really impressive. They really are. So. To the school system as well.
Wonderful. We have 2 motions then.
Should I do the field trip first?
The field trip first, yeah.
Move that the school committee approves an out-of-state field trip for Galvin Middle School grade 6 students to Enterprise City, Dover, New Hampshire on June 17th, 18th, and 19th.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous?
Move that the school committee accept with deepest gratitude a donation of $6,500 from the Grant Foundation, which will allow 296 6th grade students to participate in Enterprise City program, which teaches students firsthand how basic economic concepts are used in the real world.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. No comments? All those in favor? And it's unanimous. You're on your way.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
Can I just thank Ms. Doucette, too, for presenting this past weekend at Perrin University. I know there was a few students on this committee who were in her class, and I did walk in at one point, and she was telling her parents, the parents, that they were as bad as the students. But,
I did not.
No, but it was it was probably the most well-attended, one of the most well-attended of the sessions, and the feedback was extraordinary, and I want to commend you, because you were one of the first teachers to jump on board to present, so I want to,
I agree, Tom. I'm glad I did it.
since you're here, thank you very much for
Thank
presenting.
you.
Okay.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
With Mr. Markham, too, by the way.
I know, I wasn't gonna, I think I caught Mr. Callahan on his phone.
Yeah, he posted a picture of me on Facebook. I was checking my phone.
Yeah, no, I wasn't going to go there either. You brought it up. Thank you.
Okay, and then I'd also like to jump to item 6E on Wakefield Academy summer programming. Mr. Randall.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thanks for having me. I have a couple of different updates. First and foremost, the summer program. They have been completed, and I'm pleased to say, with a year under our belt, we were able to do some advanced planning. So all of the information has been sent out to site coordinators and also posted online, giving parents plenty of time to make arrangements and plan. And in general, we have 5 programs that run the duration of summer from literally the day after school ends until August 14th. And I think the easiest way to kind of explain it is that we have camps 1 and 2, and the reason why we even call them that is that the breaking point is July 4th. So up to July 4th weekend, we have a particular model where for exiting K to 6 students, they have a summer camp at the Dolbear Elementary School, providing kind of end-of-year transition into summer coverage 7 to 6, as we would during February vacation or April vacation programming. And this year, we are offering a similar type program at the Doyle Early Childhood Center. Then 4th of July hits, and the weekend is over, and we start with a new model, which again has vacation camps at both Dolbear and Doyle for the same age groups. The only difference is that for the Dolbear Elementary School, that camp really is from mid-morning until late afternoon. But we add in the summer enrichment program, which is a kind of trifecta, if you will, of courses: weird science, computers, and sports programming that runs on a cycle of those 3 courses, and kids are divided up into separate, in appropriate age groups depending on enrollment. So that information is out, and we're happy to be offering those programs and that level of coverage for that duration of time. Another key aspect to the summer planning that I've worked with Drs. Reich and Mike Pifferling and Lynn O'Neill in special education is to try to clarify and streamline our communications about summer programming and planning. Because I think in the past we have a number of different platforms or organizations that offer summer planning and summer programming. So it can be at times confusing for the consumer, for parents, about what constitutes a Wakefield Academy program versus a special education program versus an athletic program or any other program that's going on in the district. There are music camp programs that go on. So in keeping with trying to streamline and better communicate about those programs and kind of break them out a bit for folks, we will be publishing a brochure that will sort of outline each of the offerings and have those distributed to the schools and posted on the website. And that's in process right now. I actually have a follow-up meeting with Ms. O'Neill to kind of complete that project. So I'm happy to say that that'll be out shortly. If there are no questions on summer, I'll skip to just some highlights of accomplishments.
Is the pricing level?
Pricing structure will remain the same, and our enrollments this year have been really good, really strong, high across the board. So I would not and do not advocate any changes in our pricing structure or fees being changed.
Great.
To hit some highlights on the year, to just sort of take take this opportunity to share some things that have gone on. Beginning with the end of last year and summer last year, I instituted the new procedures or the procedures that are district-wide for all other departments we adopted in the academy, from posting jobs to having people fill out the appropriate paperwork to having interviews and then complete all of that protocol. We did that. It was implemented. I interviewed all summer and had all of that in place prior to the beginning of the school year, which was a good way to start because it gave me a chance as director to meet individually with every single person who, A, wanted a job in the academy, and B, ultimately ended up getting a job in the academy, and for me to kind of lay the groundwork for my expectations, not only on building off of last year, but in looking ahead. So that was an excellent opportunity. We implemented the new group leader position. That is in place at all of the schools, and just as a refresher, there was a differentiation made in staff at the academy from teachers who are expected to plan and produce lessons for kids or activities, and a group leader position was added in for those adult staff who are not necessarily planning or leading activities, but who are there for support of those activities and supervision during the course of the programming. So that is in place and has been defined. As I alluded to, the lesson planning has begun and was in place from day one with our teachers, and has been met, I think, very successfully. One of the things that we balance is that there are certain things at each of the site that are daily events. You have your snack, you have your homework time, and we also, depending on the age level, try to offer some open time for kids to just unwind and not have a structure after the day. So what it's amounted to is having a selection of activities during basically almost like an activity block at each of the sites, so the kids can pick and choose what they're interested in doing. I serve on the district school safety team led by Dr. Schreich, and one of the things that we have done I have met with each of the school safety teams at each of the schools, and reviewed their crisis plans and safety plans, and added and built off of their planning to include before and after school program protocols. And in most instances, what that amounts to is taking from their plans the appropriate action steps for the spaces that we occupy. We have set spaces at each of the facilities in each of the schools, so if we're in the cafeteria, we will try to follow that school's protocol for exiting the cafeteria during a particular situation. So we try to work in concert and have it be something that's would be familiar to the students and the staff on that site, so that it's not reinventing the wheel or confusing matters. We opened this year at Doyle, as Doyle itself did. We've opened both before and after school programs and vacation programs, and they are up and running and well attended, and I'm happy to say that the feedback thus far has been good. I am proud of our staff and feel like we're very fortunate because a large number of the staff, or actually all of the staff who are working with our youngest kiddos now in the academy are experienced in working with the preschool student population, and specifically working at Doyle. So they're familiar faces for the parents, they're familiar faces for the kids, and Doyle has definitely become, their home base. And so that is up and running, and we're feeling very good about that. We had record numbers at our February vacation camp, so much so that on a couple of days we had over 60 students, and had to I had a contract for a larger bus to take some of our field trips. So that's good news because we're getting more families involved and more kids taking advantage of the opportunity. So we were excited about that. This past weekend we had Wakefield University, where the Academy offered free childcare for those parents and guardians who were attending the programming. And we had a wide range of students attend. We had youngsters as young as 2 years old up to middle school. And we were fortunate enough to be housed in the Galvin Learning Commons, which is a wonderful facility. Next door, we had a cafeteria that once it cleared out, we were able to do some activities in there as well. And we had a very good number of students. A higher percentage of people who signed up this year actually did follow through and take advantage of the program. So we had, 55 students actually attend, which is about 15 to 20 more than we actually had attend last year. So that was a good sign, and hopefully that trend will continue. Similarly, April vacation camps have been out. Those forms and information have been out for a couple of weeks with signups involved and posted online for families. I'd like to highlight some works in progress that we're doing that I think will that are important. First and foremost, I've been working with Rick Manzi and talking with Dr. Reich and also with some other staff at the middle school about taking what we do at Galvin and expanding it and maybe organizing it a bit differently for enrichment so that we can involve more students on a regular basis. So I think there's a desire for that on the part of the student body. And one sort of vision that is developing is to create, if you will, 3 branches or arms of enrichment, to have a sports section, an academic section, and then just a general arts section, which could include any number of things, whether it's visual or fine art or music or anything. And to have those 3 streams offer eventually multiple activities in each of those arms each season of the year, so that in effect our offerings are well-rounded and hopefully reaching more of the student body's interest each season so that we can increase our enrollments. So I'm working on that, and chances are, because what we've noticed, in particular with programs that are popular with the middle school, for example, like the cross-country team, this year we had at one point 150 students who were part of the cross-country team. Now, part of that is just that we've built on a successful program, but I think it also speaks to the desire that kids have to be, active and participating in activities. And we're looking forward to, obviously when construction is completed, having access to the gym and more of the fields to bring back flag football, which I think we would then have another large turnout, and we would have the field space to do. But I think that there's lots of opportunities in these various areas to grow. So that's in process. As is, I've reached out to several parents, and I have 2 on board, and hopefully by the end of either March or prior to April vacation, I'll have my first meeting of a Academy Advisory Council. This would be a council of people to pick their brain and to ask me questions, have staff members present as well, to look at ways we can improve and see what ideas are out there. Another project on the horizon is working with Jeff Weiner about taking the information that we have on our Academy webpage and just formatting it to be in sync with the new format of the Wakefield Public School site, just so that it's neater, cleaner. I like our information that we have, but it's not nearly the professional design that I think the current site represents for the other site. So I want to sort of migrate to that. And in keeping with that, I am hopeful to put together like a monthly newsletter or update that's connected to the webpage so that I can give people an idea on what's happening in the Academy in general and any sort of special events or hopefully eventually like photos or small videos of things that are going on, just to highlight things, some of the exciting things that are going on. So that's a goal of mine, is to try to have that, maybe a first edition coming out in June on the updated webpage that would highlight what we did during the year, and then have that in place for not only over the summer, but then next school year on a regular basis. There's one last thing I just wanted to highlight that I think has been an excellent addition to our structure and that I'm proud of my team for taking on, is that I purchased this year or invested in some Chromebooks for my site coordinators so that they could become, at least in terms of not only their student lists, but their deposits, their payroll, their communications, the student signups for various programs could be in electronic format, and that we could begin to use Google Drive to share documents and presentations and others. So our site coordinators have been hard at work at learning how to use that and to sort of migrate some of the paper-heavy processes that we've had in the past into electronic format, and I think we still have room to grow there, but I'm really happy that we've started it and that there's a base built, because then my hope would be that I could have some trainings either over the summer or at the beginning of next year to really hone in on some skills that we could use to just streamline our processes and make it easier for not only us internally, but eventually, hopefully, for parents in terms of just general communications. Next.
Open up to the committee for questions, Mr. Randall? I know I had a couple, but go ahead.
No. So, Jeff, Fred, sorry. So thank you for coming and following up on this. I know that the last time you were probably here was in the early fall, after what was a very busy spring and summer, a meeting with us as a subcommittee. So I just wanted to make note that a lot of the types of things that we were talking about back then, we've seen come into fruition, some program redesign, some reorganization, some staffing adjustments, some hiring procedure changes, posting of jobs and job descriptions, those types of things. So really the types of really what comes to mind most is that you've taken a good program and really made it better. That the types of things that had raised some concerns weren't programmatic, but were perhaps more organizational. And I think certainly, I know this is something that the superintendent was focused on in his first year, among with 100 other things in his first year. But nonetheless, we had met a number of times last year on this, and it's really good to see, here we are 6-7 months later, the types of things that you are reporting tonight and included in our materials are really, really coming to be. So I wanted to recognize that. I know it hasn't been easy. We sort of gave you a tall order in what was your second year almost. We've certainly seemed to have come a long way. I would encourage you to stay on the types of things that you've expressed as some priorities, and to make as good use of the Doyle as you possibly can. So thank you, Mr. Randall, and to everyone at Wakefield Academy for coming along with some of the changes. I know there was some unrest. And change can be a difficult thing sometimes, but I think you and the superintendent and the rest of the senior staff really managed that well, so congratulations.
Thank you.
The couple questions I had is, you mentioned that February was like a record breaker.
Yeah.
I would almost anticipate that April would be worse because parents used up so many of their personal days on snow days. It's not, from what I'm hearing, you are able to maintain that flexibility and react quickly to the big enrollments?
Yeah, we really have, and that's a credit to our staff. I really, and when I say staff, I mean both adults and our students, who we continue to recruit in and try to develop more of a fleet of our students at the high school. We are flexible, and we haven't had to cap any numbers or turn anyone away who's interested. And that's really our mission. That's our goal, is to make sure that if parents need us, that we're there for them. And people, my folks, I'll tell you, the staff at Wakefield Academy, I really give them tremendous credit, because when I put out feelers about who may be available to work, I always have to make difficult choices on staffing depending on enrollment, but then I have a very rich substitute list. There's people want to work, and And so then if and when we do have big enrollments come in, I can call folks and they're ready to go. So that really has been, that's made my job a lot easier, knowing that we have the people, that we never have to say no to anybody.
Great, that's good to hear. And then just a couple comments as you talk about moving into a new website. And today, could I go onto your website and sign up for courses and pay for them on the website, or do I still have to fill out forms?
You can. You still have downloadable PDF forms that you can use, but you can pay online, certainly through Unipay, and there's a direct link on the website there. But it's still not all one-stop shopping, if you will. So you would have to fill out the forms and hand those in, and then if you pay online, you get a confirmation number that you include in your packet. But, so it's not entirely online yet, or automated, if you
Might be a
will.
good thing to work towards.
Yeah, I really would like us to get there and be at that point.
And then, when you're doing your student information, your lists, how is that secured?
Well, for us, it's all pretty much done on Excel sheets that start from registration period. And then all of that information is only available to either the site coordinators or myself. So we don't have necessarily like hard copies of the emergency forms, other than what's kept in the school offices. Is that what you're referring to?
I guess I was expecting you to go to, like it's on a drive that's only shared with certain people.
Yeah, they're on like an Excel spreadsheet on a Google Drive. So when you're on Google Drive, you can develop a spreadsheet as part of the drive, and then you can share that document only with select individuals. Yeah.
Good, thank you. Does anybody else have any further questions? Well, thank you very much. It looks like you're making great strides.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any more comments? Okay. And just out of courtesy, did you come for public comment, or are you?
To listening, yes.
Just to listen, okay, okay, good, good. We had gone by the public participation, but I wanted to make sure I didn't skip you, okay. The, going back, I guess, at this point to Chairman's remarks and reports, okay? First thing, the item on our agenda would be a motion for the FY16 school department budget.
Move that the school committee approves the fiscal year 16 school department budget as presented by the administration.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Just for the record, the amount of our proposed budget is $34,787,085, which includes a $3,558,357 increase over our current year budget. I think you all have copies we've gone over the major components. We've had this budget hearings, we've had our budget workshops. A great deal of discussion has gone around this. Did you have anything to add, Dr. Strike? Mr. Piffling?
No, we have extra copies if people need them here. but-
Anybody here or in the audience needs copies? Anybody in the table? Anybody in the audience like a copy of the budget or overviews?
Good.
If I could just say, in your packet, I did provide you with a multi-part series of articles written by members of the Wakefield Public Schools administration team. After talking with the communications subcommittee, we thought it was important for the community to hear from just more people than just myself and the school committee regarding the areas of increase in the budget and the need for them. And so we've started already. Dr. Smith wrote a piece about curriculum. Mike wrote a piece about transportation and utilities. Mr. Weiner wrote about technology needs and the increases in technology. And Ms. Calora from the Greenwood School wrote about math coaching, talking about the impact that literacy coaching had last year, and then the need for math coaching at the elementary level. And then we plan to publish some more pieces in the coming days and weeks. Have Ms. Perriello from the Doyle will write about full-day kindergarten, Mr. Metropolis about the high school staffing shifts, which are significant in this budget. Ms. O'Neill who's the Director of Special Education, will share her thoughts on special education increases. And then finally, I will be asking Dr. Hughes, the Dolbear principal, to provide her take on elementary counseling, just to get a different take from, so you don't have to hear my monotonous voice over and over on the five buckets that we've talked about through this budget process. I continue to believe very strongly that these are not nice things to have. These are must-haves for this system. I have no doubt that these are the right levers for us to continue to move forward. I think we've made some good progress in the last year, but we are not where we need to be as a school system. I think we're a very good school system, but I don't think we're a great school system. And to do that, I think we need to continue to put some important pieces and structures in place. This budget, there was a lot of thought involved, a lot of discussion, a lot of conversation, and I believe that this, while it's a substantial increase, I think if you look at historically at the cuts or and then some very level years, we're just now starting to come beyond what inflation would have done for our budget over the last 15 years. And I do think it puts us in a position to really be a competitive, attractive, and very healthy and strong district for years to come. So with that, I know the school committee would like to comment on the budget, and I very much appreciated the opportunity to engage not only with the school committee, but the entire Wakefield community over the course of the last really few months as we talk about this budget. And I look forward, and I know there'll be further conversation as we move to the Finance Committee, Board of Selectmen, and then ultimately May 4th to, what hopefully is just one night at town meeting, but we'll see. Town meeting on May 4th. So thank you very much.
Okay. Ann?
Just, before we get started, I just want to thank, I guess it was the Chair Callanan and Mr. Markham, Chair of the Budget Subcommittee, for having the budget workshop on that Saturday. And we spent a Saturday where we all got together and we were able to go over it. And I know it was, I found it really valuable, where we were able to voice our support or our opposition to the budget and all its specific aspects and pieces in the budget, as well as asking questions and having an opportunity to get really detailed answers. So I really appreciate that, and I found it incredibly helpful. So I hope we do that next year as well. So it was great.
I think it was very helpful myself.
Yeah.
Okay. Comments about the current budget? Great.
So first, I want to just say I'm sorry that I missed the budget hearings. I had the unfortunate, I was in the unfortunate position of being with my son in New Mexico in 70-degree weather. But
it snowed that day.
It was a Christmas present, so I missed the budget hearings, so my apologies. But really, I think one of the things that the superintendent, stated eloquently why this budget is the right budget for our schools, for our students. But the other thing that I think is important about this budget that I think it's the public should know is this is not the result of a wish list, if you will. It's not like we went around and asked each of the various program department heads what they wanted for next year. This is the result of a vision. This budget reflects the values that we've articulated as a community, not just the school committee, but the staff, the parents, the community members who participated in public forums going all the way back to the hiring of Dr. Shrike when we talked about the vision for the school system. And so we began with a vision for what it would take to go, as we said repeatedly during those months of taking our school system from good to great. And what would it take? What would it take to get us there? And that vision was articulated in the three key areas: quality teaching, rigorous curriculum, and individualized student learning. And we started from that basis and built a budget around that vision. And so I think it's important for the community to know that there was a lot of deep thought that went into this, and that the numbers, and it is a significant ask of our taxpayers. It's a significant ask that's within the framework of Proposition 2.5 that I think will be supported strongly by the Board of Selectmen. It's been supported by our town administrator. But it is a significant ask still. but it's an ask that's grounded in a vision for what is best for our students and our schools. So I think this is a very, very good budget proposal, and I fully support it.
Thank you. Who's next? Mr. Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is really probably the most difficult decision I've had to make, at least for me personally, on the school committee, given, the things that were articulated by the superintendent, by Ms. Danahy, really throughout this entire process, about the needs and how many things that, frankly, there are things in this budget, despite how large the increase is, that aren't addressed. And we grapple with this all the time. And I want to preface this statement by saying and making it abundantly clear that I think that the administration, that Dr. Zreich, Mr. Pifferling, that Ms. Morgan, Mr. Markham, and Mr. Callanan on the Budget Subcommittee have worked very diligently on this budget. And I think it's a transparent document. I think it's an honest document. And frankly, any time that Ms. Danahy mentioned the budget hearing, or rather the budget workshop that happened on March 14th on a Saturday, where all of us sat for 4 hours on a Saturday and talked about numbers the entire time and asked very pointed questions of the administration and got detailed analyses of frankly, every time we got answers that were detailed and that were grounded in visions and in numbers. With that being said, I think we've chosen some funding priorities in this budget that require some difficult decisions. And I think, and I was fully on board with it. I, like Greg, wasn't present for the budget hearing where we also voted on the full-day kindergarten resolution, which I fully support, and I think it's clear that we've made that a budget priority, a spending priority, above a lot of other things. So I'm happy to see that that's in this budget, but it's also an extensive cost. And I think with that in mind, that there are some other things in here in this budget increase that I think could wait. Is it ideal for them to wait? No. I mean, we're not in an ideal financial position, frankly. But I think that there are some things, particularly, I'm not comfortable asking for new hires when we're already asking for so much from our taxpayers, with respect to SPED funding, which the state we could really use the state's help on SPED funding, but they don't really give it to us. So we have to step up and foot the bill, and we're required to do that. There are a lot of things that we're asking in this budget that are expensive and that we have to do. And unfortunately, I think we need to sacrifice some of the other things that aren't an absolute necessity this year. And I know, Mr. Chairman, you'd like to keep this short. Overall, I think as more of a big picture approach, I'm almost frustrated that we even have to have this conversation about an 11.4% budget increase, because it's not a spending spree. It's not there are no extravagant asks in terms of services, but we historically have been so underfunded by the state through Chapter 70, mainly, that we're in a position where the administration, and certainly I think the Budget Subcommittee and probably the rest of my colleagues, thinks it's necessary to ask for this big lump sum in 1 year. I think that it's a little bit too much to ask of our taxpayers in 1 year. And just for kind of to put it in perspective, if Wakefield gets about $1,600 per student in Chapter 70 funding per pupil, and Reading gets about $2,400 per student. If we got the same Chapter 70 funding per pupil that Reading gets, which is still, by the way, below the state average, we would have an additional $2.8 million in funding, in Chapter 70 funding, and that would pretty much leave only full-day kindergarten for us to ask for this increase. And I think that's a worthy local investment that the community has stated as a top priority in the school committee, and the administration, for educational reasons, have stated as a top priority. So I love all these things to happen, and it's a very difficult decision for me. But I'll be voting no on the budget because I think that this could be a little bit less, and I think it's a little bit too much to ask of our taxpayers at once. But I do want to make it very, very clear that if there's anybody that we should trust with even a smaller ask or a larger ask, that I would trust it in the hands of this administration. It's been honest, transparent, proactive, and certainly the Budget Subcommittee, who has been very diligent, working for much longer than most of the public has seen. So it's a tough decision. But for me, I think it's the right one. Thank you.
Mrs. Cook.
As far as Chapter 70 funding, it is what it is, and I think we have to move forward. I commend Dr. Reich for bringing his vision to Wakefield, and hopefully it's going to be a reality. We have been underfunded for years, and our students and our staff has gone without, and it's time that we step up to the plate. You know, I'd love to get $1,000 per pupil for Chapter 70 funding, but I'd also like to be the Queen of England, and it is what it is. We can't look at what we'd like to have. I think we need to look at what we have, move forward, and bring the best for our children to Wakefield. And I applaud Dr. Reich for having that vision and being aggressive in moving Wakefield forward. And I will support the budget.
Mr. Markham?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly would echo what a couple of my colleagues have said, and also want to take a moment to thank my fellow members of the Budget Subcommittee for what has been a lot of hours, mornings, nights, Saturdays. But most importantly, the type of things that I think we've been able to put our heads and hearts around is really some of the work that Dr. Reich and the team that he's assembled, some of which have been here for a really long time and have brought some really good history and some grounding to Dr. Reich, as well as him bringing to the team some challenges, some boldness, and some enthusiasm. And I think that we as a community, well, first and foremost, we as a school committee need to react to exactly the types of things that our teaching staff, our principals, our administrators, and our superintendent are asking of us. We can't just make speeches around good to great. We can't just pretend to read books that we probably never read, and have that be meaningful. There are times that we as elected officials just have to take the action, and especially we on the school committee, as a point of indulgence, our role is predominantly to be advocates for education, to be advocates for teaching and learning, to be advocates for college and career readiness, while we have to balance that with the realities of our community and the realities of other elected officials and appointed officials. We want to be able to do that with advocacy, sort of leading that charge. I think that while this is certainly a large ask, 11.4% or darn close to it, is a very big number. It makes up for a lot of years of decline. It makes up for years of either budget cuts or level funding. And as we all know, level funding budgets equal cuts in reality. And we are able to, through some really shrewd and crisp conversations with town officials, all during the process of the last several months, been able to present a budget to the community that is within Proposition 2.5. We're not asking for extraordinary, action, and I think the types of things that we are asking for and advocating for really speak to some critical needs that have gone for years unanswered. We want just take one example of technology. The types of things that we have been able to do with technology in the last 24, 36 months have been really a lot about rearranging the deck chairs by taking priorities from within our current budgets and reapportioning them as the school committee has seen fit. Certainly, there have been some strong support from the town in terms of a capital costs and capital appropriations, but the types of things that we need to do to continue that effort. Wakefield is not where it needs to be. Wakefield is not where other communities were a couple years ago in terms of technology. We had a great report from our IT director tonight about how well things are working, but we're not where we need to be for 21st century teaching and learning. I would, if I may, just indulge the committee and in the community and remind of a couple of the significant high points. In no particular order, I would say that first, that our greatest investment always, in my view, is that in our teaching staff and in the people that we entrust to work with our students and our children day in and day out. This is year 2 of a series of fair, balanced, and affordable collective bargaining agreements. That is the largest piece of the increase in this budget. We are in a year 2 where we settled collective bargaining agreements last year. We are in a year 2 of that. And the expectations that we can have of staff directly can speak to the professionalism that we expect, professionalism that we demand, and the professionalism that they deliver. We want to not only be able to recruit a quality staff, we want to retain quality staff. As the committee has already discussed ad nauseum, the inclusion of full-day kindergarten having been a priority from almost day one of Dr. Reich, and very quickly something I think this committee and community adopted. The right sizing of special education, probably the next highest ticket item, but is of critical importance. Any time in the last number of years that we've had to freeze the budget in the middle of the year, or in some cases freeze the budget at the beginning of the year in order to accommodate the lawful and appropriate and our responsibilities for special education services. However, that means that we have taken funds away from other departments, and that just can't continue to stand. We cannot pit one group of students or one part of the school district against another in that way. That is completely inappropriate. The next big thing that this does is it lays the groundwork for a long-term vision of curriculum and curriculum development and curriculum expansion. As any of us who have kids in the system, either now or in the recent past, know that we have been stagnant with terms of curriculum. These are not items that are inexpensive. These are sweeping, appropriate, and long overdue changes. What this budget does is, with an increase, a requested increase of $230,000, lays the groundwork by building into the budget a guarantee that we will have a curriculum program for the next several years as we change change gears subject by subject, content area by content area. In fiscal year 16, we are looking to revamp K through 8 math and K through 1 phonics. 2 critical important areas that I think that we as a community, or certainly anyone that has appreciation for what's going on in teaching and learning, has a great appreciation for that absolute need. Things like transportation and utilities, those are almost a cost that we get handed and need to appropriately deal with. And if we don't, again, right-size those type of budgets, we're going to be in the same quandary that we've been in for years with special education. We'll be robbing from one part of the budget to pay another part of the budget. Part of the exercise, I think, that we, as the Budget Subcommittee, first charged Dr. Zweig and Mr. Piffling and the administration with was to develop a budget, and if I may quote Mr. Liakos, that was not driven by a wish list, but was driven by what are the types of things for 21st century teaching and learning that we're not doing, and what does that price tag look like. I think during the public hearing, I recall making comments that there's a lot of things that are on the cutting room floor that are not part of this budget. And some of those things certainly are things that need to be prioritized and how they can come to be in future years. But the types of things that I've just rattled off and the types of things that we've spoken about for the last several months that we've heard from constituents, we've heard at public hearings, and the types of support that we appear to be getting from town officials really bodes well for our capacity to make a significant leap forward in teaching and learning and the expectations, not only first and foremost, of course, of students, but secondly of staff at all levels. I think that the administration has made a quality case. They have made it is a bold initiative, but boldness is good. Boldness speaks to quality, speaks to enthusiasm, speaks to passion, it speaks to expectation. And I think each of those things are things that we bring to the table, and we insist that the superintendent have, and that we insist the superintendent make sure that the staff has. So I certainly, have every intention of supporting the budget enthusiastically. So, if I could just respond to something that Mr. Kenny, or some of Mr. Kenny's remarks, I guess I'm disappointed that we either haven't made our case or the case isn't strong enough across the board. The Chapter 70 argument, in all due respect, I'm not quite sure that belongs at this table. Certainly, if we have a opportunity to bring in the legislators again, or maybe we'll be campaigning for you one day for state legislature. But Chapter 70 is not something that we can fix. It's not something that the selectmen fix, a town meeting fixes. It's almost an excuse, frankly, for why we should expect less out of our staff and our students. And so I'm not persuaded at all by the Chapter 70 argument. We're not Reading. Nor do I want to try to be Reading. Not that I don't have some good friends in Reading, and Reading is a wonderful place to be. But that isn't who we are and what we are. So I would like, even for the sake of argument, whether it's here as part of these conversations, Mr. Kenny, or future, to appreciate the types of things that you think actually could be cut. It's one thing to make some remarks in broad sweeping statements, and it's another thing to, I don't know if you're prepared to make motions tonight to cut the budget to a number that you feel is appropriate, but that is something that I would like to appreciate in a dialogue, whether it was at the budget workshop, which you didn't bring to the table, or which was your prerogative, of course, or tonight. But I would be most interested in a conversation that surrounds a healthy one. That is, so what number is appropriate? Is 10.4% appropriate? 8.4% appropriate? And how do we get there? It's a lot harder to make the case with the rhetoric off the table and actually talking about the types of things that we can be putting aside. So I don't know if we didn't make the case strongly enough, or I would be certainly most interested. And again, it doesn't have to be a tonight conversation, because perhaps you're unprepared for that. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm disappointed to hear that we're not going to be a united committee moving forward with such a bold and needed ask. Thank you.
Mrs. Denny.
Okay. I didn't raise my hand, but okay.
I want everybody, this is one of the biggest things we do all year. I think everybody needs an opportunity to speak.
Okay. So I would like to say, first of all, I would like to thank the superintendent for your vision for our school system in terms of, I think that you build a budget that's not about just saying what can we do this year, but it's about a long-term commitment of implementing your vision, which I think you've had a vision from the day that you arrived. And I think that is one of the most important things, is that we have a strategic thinker leading our school district. I was on the finance committee for 5 years. I saw every year our budgets, when I was on the finance committee, every budget in town was being cut. Every single budget, and we'd have every department head coming in, we'd have the police chief coming in. We have X number of police officers on the street, we should have more. Every single budget was being cut. And my prediction was, we're gonna keep cutting, and then we're gonna get into a situation where our services are gonna be so low that we're gonna have a very hard time getting out of this hole that we've dug ourselves into. And we have been digging ourselves out of the hole. So I think that we need to be mindful that the 11% increase that we're seeing in the school budget is not something that we're adding to an already healthy budget. We're adding this on to a budget that had been cut for about 10 years, or so. And that we are finally in a position that we're able to do this budget increase without an increase of tax to taxpayers. We're doing this all under Proposition 2.5. And I don't think that I would be in favor if we had to go to the taxpayers and ask them for more money. I'm glad that we are not in a situation where we have to do that. We're doing that within our Prop 2.5. I think that there are things in the budget that I would say, I wanted to advocate for, and I understand that we can't ask for everything, that we need to have a vision. We put our partnership with the town, we invested a lot of money in technology. And I applaud the town, I applaud the schools for looking forward, and look at where that came. There are people who did not want us to spend the money, did not want us to spend the money on the infrastructure and all the other issues around it. We did, and it's made such a difference. It has made such a difference. And I just think that that is a perfect example to look at, is that when you invest in education and when you have a leader who's moving us forward and you have a strong partnership with the town, working on these partnerships, that we can do great things. So I fully support the budget as it stands, and I guess that's it.
Thank you. Ms. Morgan?
I would also just like to thank Dr. Zweig for his vision, but more importantly than the vision is taking action on it. I've seen people with visions before, and sometimes that's how they stay, and they never move forward. As a first-time member of the budget subcommittee, I feel extremely confident in this budget. It's extremely well thought out. It's been a thorough process. I'd like to thank my colleagues on the subcommittee for helping me through this, as it's been my first time this close to the budget, and I will definitely be supporting this.
My comments are that, much like Mrs. Danahy pointed out, is that our ask is not, we're not asking for an override. We're not, this budget is not going to cause a tax increase in the town of Wakefield. We are working closely with the town side of government to find the funding. It's a plan. We're not going to be asking for 11.4% next year or the year after, but by having the money in place and taking the big bite of the apple this year, it allows the administration to properly put in well thought out and planned expenditures on curriculum and follow the plan that's in place and know that they were able to accomplish this and not have to worry about it every single year. It's just a chart that Mr. Pifflin put forth at our workshop that showed how this budget just barely brings us above inflation, where inflation would put us anyway over the course of the last 10 years. I'm pleased that we're doing something to correct the special ed versus regular ed battle that seems to happen in people's conversations, that people feel as though one's robbing from the other, and I don't think that they should be at odds. I think they need to work in harmony, and that this is addressing that. And like others have said, we hired Dr. Zweig to be bold and move us ahead, and that was his marching orders from day one. And he's certainly bringing us there, and we're excited to be on the trip. So I totally support this budget as well. Mr. Kenny.
I'll try to keep this short, Mr. Chairman. I know you want to keep the discussion short. I just want to respond to some of the requests that, particularly that Mr. Markham made, and thank you for your respectful response, Mr. Markham. I guess I'll start there, which is that the discussion that I had at length with the administration and kind of fleshed it out a little bit more at that budget workshop was about my particular suggestion was that I'm really uncomfortable with hires when we're already asking for a lot of other increases. It's, about $375,000 or thereabouts, and I think it's something that we could consider waiting on. I think it's something that isn't necessary to include in this budget. When I kind of bounced that idea around with some members of the committee and rather thoroughly with the administration, it was clear to them that that wasn't an option. So for me to put it forward as a motion would kind of be, it wasn't going to pass and it wasn't going to receive support. So after discussions, rather than kind of unnecessarily extending any kind of discussion like that, kind of reached the conclusion that that wasn't an area that, perhaps that was an area where I was just going to disagree. Not that it's not necessary, but that it couldn't wait. I think it could wait. Getting into, it was mentioned that, to do this within Prop 2.5, while it is a good thing, it's important to remember that is still a cost to the taxpayers. 2.5% plus new growth is still a cost to the taxpayers. And so is free cash. There's going to be a lot of reserve funding that goes into this budget, and even though that's not coming out of the tax levy this year, it's money that's come out of the tax levy year after year, and it's still important to treat that like taxpayer money and realize that it is taxpayer money. So I'm also not comfortable saying that it's at no additional cost to the taxpayers, because it is, but it's certainly an impressive feat that it's proposed that we're going to do this without an override. And I think that is a testament to the fiscal management of both the administration and the town administration. And one more thing to Mr. Markham's argument, it really is not, and I really wanted to make this point clear, it is not a matter of the budget subcommittee or the administration not making a good enough case. You made a diligent, enthusiastic, passionate case, and it's frankly a big reason why this was such a difficult decision for me. But I still think that 11.4% is a lot to ask for the taxpayers, and this was, I think, a substantial budget increase is warranted, given the fact that it is absolutely necessary that we need to right-size SPED funding and a number of other issues. We're contractually obligated with salaries, as you mentioned, Mr. Markham, which is really the biggest area of increase. And these are things we have to do, and I think a substantial increase is warranted. But I think in the interest of kind of making sure we keep that balance between the needs of the taxpayers and the needs of the schools, I think it's important that we don't ask for more than what we absolutely need this year. And also just to briefly discuss the idea that Chapter 70 doesn't belong at this table, or rather, I guess less than that. What's more important to me is that the suggestion that I believe Ms. Cook made, which is that at some point we need, as in the local taxpayers, need to step up to the plate. And I just want to make it very clear that the local taxpayers have been stepping up to the plate for a very long time. We just built a brand new middle school that just hit tax bills this year, which is, of course, outside of the parameters of Prop 2.5. And that was a big hit for the average single-family home. And it's something, great project, I think a lot of people are happy with. But I think it's a lot to combine in 1 year to ask for or from our taxpayers, and to suggest that our local taxpayers haven't been stepping up to the plate, I think is unfair, because as I said, and as I've said many times, that almost 90% of Massachusetts school districts get more Chapter 70 funding per pupil. So by default, our local taxpayers have been stepping up a lot more. In fact, they've been hitting home runs in comparison to a lot of the other districts and the local taxpayers in those districts. They've been stepping up disproportionately. So I think it's important to focus on that. And I think at some point, because year after year we pass this burden that the state puts on us to our local taxpayers, and I think at some point we need to give them a little bit of a break. And I know it's a difficult decision to make, but that's the financial situation that, frankly, Beacon Hill and in some cases Washington, D.C. have put us in. So thank you very much. I really genuinely appreciated this budget process. There were a lot of changes that were made this year that were really important in the interest of transparency. Assuming this budget goes forward, I do look forward to supporting the superintendent and the rest of the administration in implementing it and spending it wisely, as I certainly trust that they will. So thank you.
Okay. Mr. Liakos?
I just had a couple of questions and thoughts in response to Evan's most recent comments, but let's start with, it sounds like your principal objection, Evan, is to the added positions, which account for $379,000 or 1.2% of the 11.4% increase. Dr. Zreich, could you summarize quickly what those added positions are?
So the added positions are, there are a number of different, one would be the math coach position that
Yep.
we've talked about,
Yep.
which is critical as we roll out a new math program across the district, and we have no support for our elementary teachers.
Yep.
One would be, another position is elementary counseling. So I've heard loud and clear from teachers and families the need to have social emotional supports at our younger grades. So
Yep.
that's another part of that. Additionally, we have some core requirements. The Mass core curriculum requires that every high school student have a full year of arts as part of the graduation requirement. So there's a position for arts. We have some needed special education positions, and those are really mandated by IEPs. So Woodville Behavior Program needs a .5 position, and the high school has a series of positions as well. And then, of course, our STEAM work, our STEM work.
Yep.
I believe we're behind in our programming as a district, and our high school has a high demand for those courses, and we just don't have enough staff to offer, the computer science, coding, programming, and so the inclusion of that 1.0 teacher would allow for that to occur. And then, of course, there are some positions in there that have to do with enrollment. So there's a Galvin position that has to do with increased enrollment at the Galvin, and obviously we have to accommodate for that. We have school district policy around class sizes that we have to be sure. And then there are positions tied to full day kindergarten, but that's not what Mr. Kenny's referring to.
Yeah, that's another line.
Oh, I'm sorry, nursing. I thank you. I thought I had it all committed to memory here. But nursing, we currently have a nurse at the high school, a nurse at the middle school, and we have a .4 floater, which is the equivalent of 2 days. And really, the ratio of students to nurses is just not enough for 2,000 plus students on 2 campuses to have merely the equivalent of 2.4 nurses. We really need an additional nurse given the size. So I think that sums up, the quality of the added positions.
Okay, thank you. That helps me. Just one other response to Evan's comments, which is he characterized the investment in the Galvin Middle School and the increases of this budget as a burden on taxpayers. I wouldn't characterize it as a burden. I would characterize the investments we've made in the Galvin Middle School and in this budget as an investment in our town's future. Because yes, it is a sacrifice on behalf of the taxpayers, but that sacrifice is paid in turn with a stronger, healthier community and better educated kids and frankly a stronger tax base, a more attractive community in which to live. So these are the kinds of investments that make our town stronger, our tax base stronger, and ultimately our economic fortunes as a community stronger over time.
Mrs. Cook?
Just to touch base on what Greg said, I believe this is an investment in the education of our children. And from what you have said, Dr. Zreich, all of these added positions either are mandated or necessary. So I don't see how, especially with only a 1% increase, how we can eliminate something that's mandated or necessary. In the big picture, 1% really is not much. And if we need it, and if it's mandated, to support everything else we have in place, it's a no-brainer. There shouldn't even be a question about it.
Mr. Kenny?
So, just to address, I'll address the personnel issues first, that there are, I think, a few of these issues that are mandated by the frameworks. Mass Core, though, is not so much a mandate as it is a suggestion, right? It's something that...
It's part of accreditation. for
Right,
the
so
high school.
it's certainly ideal to have them. It's ideal to have a lot of things that aren't included in this budget, but it goes back to my earlier point, which is we kind of need to prioritize. So the definition needed is something that is, when it comes down to these kinds of difficult decisions, mandated is one thing where we're legally obligated to do it, but when it would be ideal to have them, and you characterize them as need-to-haves, which I understand, but they are not must-haves in terms of legality, and they're things that are not absolutely imperative that they happen this year. So that's just kind of, and I do fully understand the argument that they're extremely important, and I agree with it. It's also important to reduce user fees for athletics, but we couldn't do that this year. And there are all kinds of things that we still couldn't do even with 11.4% increase, and I understand that. And that's what makes this decision difficult. To address Mr. Liaco's comments, forgive me if I was unclear. It's not that the Galvin project is a burden on the community. In fact, I think I stated pretty clearly that it's a great project, and I think a lot of people are very happy with it. It was a project that I supported. It was a debt exclusion that I voted on when I was a young 18-year-old. I voted for it, and it's because it was a great project. It's been a great project. It's still within budget. And so the term burden refers, it's more of a financial term, and that it is a financial burden. The reality is that it does have a pretty big impact by itself on the average single-family tax bill. And that's what we voted for. That's what we knew was coming. My point in relating the financial burden of the Galvin project to this year's budget increase is that this year was the first time that single-family homeowners saw that impact on their tax bills, and it's to look at the overall picture and not just the FY16 budget, is that to combine a number of these other school-related costs all into 1 year, I think is a big impact, and I think we should do whatever we can to reduce that impact on taxpayers this year. I agree that this is all a plan that is aligned with a vision, which I commend you for. I think a lot of school districts lack that in their superintendent, and we were very lucky to have that here, and in the school committee in general. I see no reason why that vision can't be achieved in more of an incremental phase instead of all in 1 year. My argument, again, is still not on the merits of the ask, just on the timing of the ask and the amount of the ask in one lump sum. So thank you all for the discussion.
Ms. Denny?
So are you suggesting then, like you said, that there are some positions that are not mandated? So are you suggesting that we should go over class size at the Galvin? Because there's one position that's needed because of enrollment, not mandated, but it's a decision not to go over class size. So are you suggesting that we do that we go over the class size limit?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, no. I think that ideally, I think our enrollment projections are a useful tool in planning, but those are based on enrollment projections, not actual projections, because of course we don't know what our exact enrollment will be coming in September. So we're basing these things on enrollment projections, which is prudent. But I think given the financial constraints that we have and the necessary priorities that we have to make, that's the sort of thing that we could look at taking off the table if we had to. My focus was really less on that and more on something like a computer science teacher and other things that are wonderful to have, and they're must-haves in terms of education, but I don't think...
I guess I'm just trying to get to the point of what specifically, because before you said if it's not mandated, we shouldn't add it. So one of those positions is the middle school teacher, and I think it is far more than just a projection. I think it's based on what the class size is now and then where they're going. That it's not a projection, it's what it is. So that if you're against adding anything that is not mandated, I guess that's my question then. So if we don't if those positions were not filled, then that means that we would be going over the class size limit at the Galvin, and I'm just wondering, are you in support of that? I guess you are, since you
No, so policy is something that would be legally binding. But the reality is that even if we're really confident in the projections, we don't exactly know that they will be the exact enrollment come September. So you're talking about the actual class size
Well-
now, and you're talking about where it's going to be in the future, and that, by definition, is a projection. So my argument is really not surrounding one teacher, but it is kind of the bigger picture, I suppose. And it's, for me, it's something that if it's not mandated or required by policy, which is, a mandate, by default, that it's something that we should consider. But it's also, again, this is a conversation that I had at length with Dr. Zreik, Mr. Pifferling, and with some members of the committee. And it was clear that wasn't an option for the administration or for the members of the school committee that I spoke with. So
First of all, I just want to answer that, is that the administration certainly does not speak for the school committee. We vote on the budget. They can't tell you, oh, it's not an option. It's our option.
Right,
They
so-
make a recommendation, we vote on it. So for the administration, you should know that you can't, the administration shouldn't be telling you, oh, you can't, it's a done deal. It's not. We vote on it. That's our role, is policy and budget on the school committee. So it's certainly saying that, oh, there was no sense in bringing it up because it was a done deal. That is wrong. That's the whole reason for the budget meeting, that our budget workshop was to go for back and forth, that I actually would have preferred to have had this discussion during the budget workshop rather than the night that we're voting on this budget, because I think that what you're raising are some very valid points, but they have implications. And I think the fact that we're very confident, and I think that's where we look to the superintendent in terms of those so-called projections that are probably, Dr. Zreik, what % would you say those projections are reality for the increased teacher at the Galvin?
Well, in this case, it is based on the students who are sitting there right now, moving up another grade. I mean, we're going based on the numbers we have currently in fourth grade going to fifth, and then vice versa. So there are actual, numbers of students.
So if we didn't
Pretty
fund,
accurate.
so if we did not fund that position, so if we cut the budget not to fund these new higher positions, the ones that are not mandated, then there would be a chance that we would be in a situation, because we didn't plan appropriately, that we would then either have to make the decision to go over class size,
Yeah.
or to cut something else out of the budget.
Yeah, I would say it's 95% certain that we would be over class size in fifth grade. If we don't add at least one more teacher, yeah.
And I just don't think that this is the time where we're being transparent to, if we want to talk about transparency, is that we're saying this is what we're going to be spending our money on, rather than, when we have a 95% chance that we're going to need this, and then do we just decide, okay, then we go over the enrollment. I think that now is the time that we start thinking about those decisions. I don't think it's doing it, this is what planning is all about, is making these decisions now rather than when it comes, oh gee, guess what, we need a new teacher. Okay, what can we cut from the budget to fund this new teacher, or we need to all as a committee make the decision to override the class size policy. I think that our decision today to fund these positions is a better strategy, number one. So that would be my big issue. The other thing that you brought up was about that, that we're doing this within Prop 2.5, and you said, but we still have an increase every year. That's not our decision. We don't set the tax rate. The Board of Selectmen do. The Board of Selectmen set that. So I guess that, would you advocate for, or, would you advocate then, we don't set that. So we're not saying, what taxpayers should be paying, what % of the tax rate should be. So I guess that it's, I see it as us really advocating for what we believe we need to deliver students in this district a quality education while being completely fiscally prudent at the same time, which I think that you've agreed to, that we are being fiscally prudent. This is not, just tax and spend.
Yes?
So I guess to address the most recent point, the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Selectmen don't exactly set they're not the only factor that goes into the tax rate. The other big factor is municipal spending. And the school committee, the schools are certainly the vast majority of municipal spending. So it's certainly a very important factor when it comes to the tax burden. The selectmen set the factor by which it's 1.75. It's been that way for some time now to split the tax rate, whether it's between commercial, industrial property and residential property. So I would argue that we do have a significant responsibility with respect to that as the governing body and the appropriating body for the biggest municipal expense in the town. And with respect, going back to the enrollment question, it's something for me that, yes, planning is what we should be doing. And this is one of the things that came up when I spoke with the administration and some of the school committee members. I don't know if you missed that, but I did speak with some school committee members about this, particularly budget subcommittee members, and it was evident to me that that wasn't an option in this case, that particularly if we're going to talk about I have notes about every single one of these positions, and one of them is the teacher, and it surrounded the class size policy and enrollment projections, and I certainly wasn't questioning the validity of the projections, but when we kind of bounced some of these ideas around, that was one of the things that came up. So there are a lot of factors that go in here that make these difficult decisions, but at this point, I think I've stated that pretty clearly, that I understand the argument loud and clear, and I respect it, and I certainly respect the passion and enthusiasm and the work that went into it.
Are we done? Okay. I thought we were done. I was hoping we were done.
You thought wrong. A nice try, though.
I wasn't fast enough.
No, you weren't fast enough. You weren't fast enough. No, I'll be incredibly brief, perhaps even in a summary. So, to speak frankly, if I may, more philosophically than specifically, we've not had a lot of specificity in the recent exchange. So I think really what we're bound to is the philosophic. Perhaps. As I said during my early remarks, we are advocates. We're advocates for teaching and learning. We are not, while we want to be able to do all of that within a responsible and reasonable way, perhaps you're on the wrong board, Mr. Kenny. We are advocates for the school system and teaching and learning. We need to bring that forward in a dynamic way to best prepare students for college and career readiness. And I guess, so, I think we were all hopeful that we would be together. We're not, and that's okay. That's what makes our democracy work and what makes it sound. At the end of the day, it is not us, it is not the Board of Selectmen, it's not the Finance Committee that's going to decide these things. It's going to be the residents and voters of town meeting. So we'll all have an opportunity to speak both with great specificity and with as much rhetoric as we want on the floor of town meeting. I think this is sound. I think this is fair and reasonable, and I think it takes us in a direction that we so desperately need to go. I think this has been healthy, perhaps at the risk of giving some undue attention, but nonetheless, it's a healthy conversation to have. So. I thank the members, and in particular, Mr. Kenny, for the time.
And one more, just to round out the context here. I think I'm characterizing this right, but we're going to have an overwhelming vote of support for this budget. And the one dissenter on the committee has said that he believes that a substantial increase was warranted, and that he objected to 0.1% of the budget. We're talking about an almost $35 million budget, and Mr. Kenny's objections were to about $379,000. That's roughly about 0.1% of the overall budget.
1%.
It will be 1%.
1. 1%.
1 whole percent, not
1
1/10
whole
of a
percent, that's right, right. So, we're 99% there. That's what I want to say.
Okay, motion's been made, seconded, and discussed. Those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries. The town warrant.
Yep.
Okay. The warrant, motion, please.
Move that the school committee propose a warrant article at town meeting to request a yet-to-be-determined sum of money from the special education stabilization account to cover extraordinary costs associated with out-of-district tuition and transportation.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. This motion is regarding the current year budget is going to, we know there's going to be a shortfall in the special ed line because we did not budget enough money there last year. But one thing we did do at the town meeting approved was put in place this special ed stabilization fund that we could draw upon if we ran into this situation. We just don't know the number yet. The Drs. Reich and Mr. Piffling are diligently working at trying to get this number down, but we don't want to put on our motion tonight a specific number until we get to town meeting on May 4th, and we'll know what the number should be. Is that accurate?
Right.
So that's why it's the number is not in the motion. Any further questions on that motion?
Just to clarify, so what is currently in the stabilization fund for this fiscal year?
It was 330,000 is what we had put into the account at last May's town meeting.
Right, okay. And this would supplement that for the current fiscal year?
No.
No,
Draw-
this would
draw it down.
Draw from it
Yeah.
for the current fiscal year.
Right.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Maybe even for a point of further clarity and transparency, that we do have a sense of what the range of the number might
Yes,
be.
yes.
It's not $330,000, it's going to be more in the $150,000, $160,000 range, at least as of 2 weeks ago. So even if we could have the range, so just so people know, this is not an expectation of draining the stabilization fund. This is something that, as the chairman said, the administration has been working to whittle down as much as possible with the awareness that it was insufficient to begin with, but the stabilization fund was known to be there as sort of the backup. So it's going to be as low as possible and within that sort of range, if not potentially lower.
Right.
Okay. We had another, like, $20,000 come up on something else, so that's why we're leaving it open.
But my only
Yeah.
point is that it's not going to be a request to drain the fund.
Right.
Whether it's
That's right.
whether it's 160 or 180 or 174.9, it's
Exactly.
going to be what it reasonably, the best efforts of the administration
actual.
to get the number down to, and it's not a request for the entire amount of money.
And this is the very purpose for which we established the
Exactly.
fund, right?
Right.
That's
Which is
exactly
important to
right.
reinforce,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's my only point, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, not to let the people know where the range of the figures are.
Okay. Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of the warrant? Okay. And the last thing I had was as you know, I sit on the Permanent Building Committee and the more importantly, I guess, the working group for the Galvin Middle School, where we have had weekly, that have now at least become bi-weekly meetings for the last 2 years. Drs. Reich presented a proposal from a group in town, I guess is the best way to put it, but to see if the Galvin site could accommodate the possibility of a skate park. Years ago, we did have a skate park installed in the back part of the old Galvin where the old baseball field was, and it created a lot of issues with the Armory Street neighborhood. As far as noise and whatnot, and yet we have found a placement on the site, and exploring it and think of a very real possibility of, instead of paying money to haul away dirt, which has become very, very expensive in this project, to reutilize some of those soils that would have been taken away to actually use them in forming a skate park, and take the money we're saving and using it to buy like precast type of what do you call it, a half pipe type of thing. A very modest type of, bare knuckles skate park that would be located out on the Main Street side of the building, over in the corner towards Kitron. And it's met with a lot of support from the PBC because we found this is a way to do it within the project at a very cost-neutral standpoint. I mean, there is still the possibility of some costs that would come out of the project, but if there are any, they'd be very minimal. And it's going to require a request to the planning board, right, for a change on the site plan. But we thought it would be prudent that the school committee endorse this concept going forward to the planning board, that we would indeed like to be able to provide this for our students. I think having a skate park and giving the skateboard users a place to go would alleviate a lot of issues we have around town where they shouldn't be, and, whether they be on the church steps at St. Joseph's or on the library stairs or wherever. It's hard to blame them when there is no place else to go. So to find a cost-neutral way to give them a place to be, we thought was pretty exciting. But we'd like to make a motion to support that concept.
Move that the school committee support the PBC proposal to modify the Galvin Middle School site plan to include a skate park.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any thoughts? Mr. Liakos?
If I remember correctly, over the last couple of years, a couple of the youth surveys that we've done,
Right.
this has been something that's been
Yeah.
identified, right?
Yeah,
So
the-
this is, to me, this is
It's
a real home run.
Huge win.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
kids really, this is their voice,
Yeah.
being heard loud and clear by
Yeah.
this community. And I've had an opportunity to talk to a few of them. I know Mr. Bedrosian's been a huge advocate for this. And I do commend the Permanent Building Committee, who has been used to us recommending changes to the plan.
Right.
But, they've been open to what I think we all believe is right for children.
Yeah.
And these young people have been very strong advocates. They've written letters, there's been petitions, and I thank the PBC for being open and willing to do this, because it is, I think it's really a win for our young people.
I
So,
agree.
thank you for the support, and I hope I get the support of the school committee in a moment here, but I'm thrilled, and I know Mr. Bedrosian's been a huge advocate for this as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? That would be unanimous. So, Susan, if you could send a note to Mr. Bertrand. And now, finally, to Dr. Reich's comments.
Try to be brief. What I love about this job is every day you wake up and you don't know what you're going to encounter, and your schedule can blow up in one moment. And today was one of those days. So we did have an evacuation at the Galvin today, but I have to say, as I reflect on today what happened, I'm really just I'm so thankful for the community that we work in on so many different levels. And what happened today is there was some work being done on the heating unit at the roof of the building, and in doing so, a gas line malfunctioned, or again, I'm talking out of school here because it's not my area of expertise. But and some gas was got into the ductwork, and there was an odor, not a high level of gas, but enough that people could smell the odor. And a staff member on the third floor wisely pulled the fire alarm, and the building evacuated within 2 minutes. At the time, the fire department came very quickly. The police came very quickly. By the time I arrived, the children were already in the the parking lot. And the decision was made to move all students to the Civic Center because we were told at the time that the students could come back in within 25 minutes to half an hour. And so we thought it was cold, prudent thing to do. Subsequently, the fire department, who I'll commend in a second, did some air testing, and they were concerned by the levels across the building, and they wanted more time. And so we were faced with all 1,100, 1,200 students in the Civic Center for a more prolonged period of time, and many of them had not eaten any food today. The fifth graders were starting their lunch, so they left with all their lunch stuff on the table. But I have to say, the lunch staff, our teachers, our custodians quickly rallied to get food. We ordered pizzas. We tried to feed as many students as we could, trucking food to the Civic Center. And I really do want to commend our teachers, our administrators and paras. They took very good care of the kids. The flexibility, patience, and their positive outlook. It's not an easy situation to be with that many students. And then our students, they were really understanding, flexible. When I asked them if they enjoyed themselves, they were pretty candid and said, no, we don't like being there. So as I was asking them coming back, and I just explained to them that's how we tried to liven up Park today. We wanted it was a field trip after the Park testing was done. But I really commend everybody for how calm they were in their professionalism. And I also want to rave about Wakefield Fire and Police because especially the captain, Randy Hudson, who was there. He was the site commander. And then Detective Michael O'Connell from the police, and Kelly Tobine was there. The cooperation, the coordination between the schools and the personnel was second to none that I've seen. They were very respectful about our challenges. We were worried that we'd have to dismiss at one point from the Civic Center, which would have been really challenging. And so we worked on a lot of different solutions, but in every case, they were very understanding of the needs of children and the needs of parents. And, obviously this is never an easy situation, but I really do commend everyone, and I'm really proud of how the community stepped up, and we'll be ready to go back to school tomorrow, more importantly, and I know that the situation has been resolved. We have clearance from everyone involved, so I do want to just thank everybody for, I was very impressed. I also want to congratulate a 7th grader, Paige Doobie, for winning a national essay contest on and her teacher wrote, Miss Golan, who's a 7th grade teacher, she completed an essay as an extra credit for a social studies classroom and and submitted it to Junior Scholastic and was chosen as one of the winners of a contest called Malala's Mission. Many of you know the book by Malala Yousafzai, who is a renowned Pakistani activist, female educator, and the youngest ever Nobel Prize laureate. And the essay actually appears in the item today. I will also post it in different places, but she won. She will win a copy of the book and $25 gift card as an award. So we're very proud of Paige's efforts and her recognition. Today, I started my day off very early in the morning at a very interesting meeting about Medco with the superintendents. It was in Needham with mostly the Metro West superintendents. And I didn't know what I was walking into, but it was with the superintendents and Medco directors. But I left feeling very encouraged about the energy around providing more advocacy for and assisting Medco in becoming more of a 21st century organization. Medco really does have some antiquated practices in the leadership and the direction of the organization. But we all see the value in the program. And I actually volunteered. I volunteered to serve on the task force to help work with the legislature as well as the commissioner. Given my experience working in urban schools, I just think that the work is so important, and the value of Medco to Wakefield is significant, and could even be stronger, I think, than if the organization is pointed in the right direction. But there is some concern that support is waning on Beacon Hill for Medco. But it was really encouraging to see so many of the veteran superintendents from some of those high-powered, wealthy communities that start with W that are not named Wakefield, that are just so committed to the viability of the program. I do want to also just say something quickly. Dolbear, I sent you an email today about Dolbear's Language Lab. program, which I think is really exciting. It's an innovative program that the school is launching, which I think is can be a laboratory for us to learn from, where students in kindergarten through fourth will have the opportunity to learn a foreign language via the computer through the Chromebook technology. They've gotten outside funding for this. They've had a parent group that's helped move this, and we're looking at it as a possible model to scale up across the system. So this is the kind of innovation. They got money from WEF as part of the innovation grant as well. And I think it's something we really need to pay attention to as a district that would love, I know there's people that would love to see foreign language at the elementary school in some capacity. This is a really innovative way and a cost-effective way that doesn't involve adding more staffing, as we've talked about tonight. But I think it has some potential, and I'm interested. I invite the school committee to see it in action at some point, because I think it would be instructive for all of us. So we'll provide you with an update on that. I just want to again speak to Parent University. We were so thrilled with the outcome and the turnout. We had over 150 parents attend. I took a quick look at the evaluation scores that came in yesterday, and 68% of those that attended said the experience was excellent. 29% said very good. 3% said good, and nobody said poor or fair, which I've never been part of anything that nobody's complained about. I mean, never, especially in this job. Always somebody complaining about something. But I was I do want to commend our staff who presented. We had over 17 staff members present. And then I just want to call out the four parents that there's no way that we don't have the manpower to lead, to do this work. But Lisa Albert, Sarah Rorick, Ann Miller, Catherine Dingra, and then to my executive assistant, Karen Fitzpatrick. They really drove this program, and I'm just thrilled by how it came out. I think we got better from the first year, and then I even look forward to build on it to be even a better offering for next year. And then just finally, there's a motion for the calendar changes. I've said more recently the two things I like least in this job are calling snow days, and secondly is the calendar. Because, again, nobody is happy with the calendar, ever. So I had planned to bring the 2015 and 16 calendar here today. We are going to wait till the April 14th meeting. I'm still collecting input, which is an enormous job. I'm getting input from staff, and we want to make sure we speak to as many constituents as possible. But I did want to make sure that we had a final calendar for this school year, given all the snow days. So as you are aware, we have utilized 6 snow days. Therefore, the last day of school for students will be Thursday, June 25th. And the last day for staff, which is really a optional day, is June 26th. One of our snow days fell on a professional development day, which was January 28th. So in order to make up the content that was planned for that day, we are proposing, and it's actually, there's an error in the motion sheet because I had put the wrong date initially, but we were recommending that Wednesday, June 24th be a half day for professional development. So that means the last 2 days of school will be half days. The Wednesday will be for the purposes of PD, and then traditionally, the last day of school is always a half day. We do not serve lunch on the last day of school. That's been a tradition as well.
You will on the PD day.
We will on the PD day, yes. So the motion should just make sure that reads Wednesday, June 24th.
Move that the school committee approves the revised changes to the 2014-2015 school year calendar as follows. Last day for students, half day Thursday, June 25th. Is that right?
Thursday, June 25th, yep.
June 24th, half day for professional learning purposes for staff.
That's right.
And then the last day for staff, Friday, June 26th.
That's correct.
Motion's made and need a second. Okay, any questions? All those in favor? That's me.
And then I neglected, I do have one more motion for the math coach.
Yeah.
We've been trying to get in the practice of making sure that we're bringing new position descriptions to the school committee. That was a request, I think a good one, made by the Labor Committee, I think last year, a subcommittee. And we continue to update descriptions, and then when we add anticipated positions. It is our plan to post all anticipated positions by April 1st, even though the budget doesn't get passed, hopefully, if it gets passed, on May 4th. It would be bad business for us as a school district to wait till after May 4th to advertise and begin the process of hiring. So we traditionally have listed them as anticipated openings, because we can't officially offer a contract to someone, but we can begin the interview process. And it really is important in terms of getting the best talent. The worst mistake a district can make is start hiring in July, which can happen if you delay these processes. Not to say you won't get a good candidate, but the pool is much stronger in April and May as people are starting to think about next year. So the reason to bring this here today is so that we can begin that process on April 1st. The only other position that would be new that we're going to have to bring to the committee is the position of the assistant principal for student services. That is one of those lateral moves in the budget at the Dolbear and at the Woodville. So we're working on that job description, which is really not many districts have quite a position, so we are writing a description for that. But the math coach position is in your packet, very similar to the literacy coach position that we proposed last year.
Move that the school committee approves a district-wide math coach position to support all grade K through 4 staff with the implementation of rigorous math curriculum aligned to the Massachusetts state frameworks as recommended by the administration.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Kenny?
Just a quick question. Should we be, maybe it's a question for Dr. Zoik, are you asking us to approve the position, or are you asking us to approve the job description?
The job description.
Okay. Could I move to amend the motion to strike the word position and insert in its place job description?
You can make
That's a
that
motion.
motion,
Yes, that's a motion.
Need a second on that motion for discussion?
What do you want to change it to?
Word position to job description, which is what we're actually approving.
It's fine, second.
Is that?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking for, is the description, yes.
So motion's been made and seconded to change the wording of the motion to say district-wide math coach job description. Okay, all those in favor of that change? Okay. All those in favor of the amended motion? Unanimous. Okay.
That concludes my comments.
Consent agenda.
Move that the school committee approves the minutes of the following meetings, February 24th, March 10th, and March 14th as presented.
Could you also include the March 19 budget subcommittee?
And the March 19th budget subcommittee meeting minutes.
I emailed those minutes out to everybody over the weekend. Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention?
I wasn't present for March 10th.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. Okay. Subcommittee, Mr. Markham?
I think we've probably had enough conversation tonight, although we can, always up for a good conversation.
Mr. Liakos for policy.
The policy subcommittee has not met since our last meeting, but I've been in discussions with both Drs. Reich and Rich Metropolis, our high school principal. We've got a list of booster organization representatives who want to participate in the conversation to come to final resolution of the issue of booster guidelines and a policy. We're setting a meeting, I hope, for next week, and should be able to get a final set of guidelines and new policy to the committee within the month.
Great. Labor?
We have not met since our last meeting.
Okay, and communications curriculum.
We met last night, and we continued to discuss the importance of communicating with the community, aspects of the budget, and reasons why we're asking for specific budget increases that they'll see in the budget, as well as talking about working on developing partnerships with some of the larger businesses in town, and looking for them to help us financially and with personnel, and just in terms of volunteering in our community.
Great. Okay, on other, any items that we did not cover that need to be brought up? Okay, future dates, our next meeting will be April 14th, which should be here. We rescheduled April 28th to the 29th, which should be our reorg meeting. And Dr. Zreik and I have scheduled another meeting of the committee in Boston with the Metco parents on May 12th. Mr. Lehman, when are we coming to? April 9th is when we're presenting to FinCom.
I'm sorry, it's April 9th and then April 29th is our,
Yeah, you're right. April 9th is just FinCom. I don't
Yeah.
have a date for Board of Selectmen.
It's the Monday.
Before?
Yeah,
Okay.
the Monday before. Yeah, 6th, that's
So
right.
April 6th, so, okay. Okay.
Can I also just remind the committee that April 10th is the International Night Metco
Metco's night,
celebration at the Galvin School from 6 to 8:30. So it'd be great if you could have folks there, but that's a rescheduled event.
Right.
That should be a fun evening.
Okay. Any comments, Mr. Kenny?
I'll pass, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
thank you.
So, Mr. Liakos?
Yes, I had one comment. I wanted to congratulate the Wakefield School District as a whole. Last week, I got a notice from the National Association of Music Merchants Foundation that Wakefield was once again named among the best communities in the country for music education. It's 388 schools and districts across the country, 15 in Massachusetts, and the foundation recognizes them for outstanding efforts by teachers, administrators, parents, students, and community leaders who have made music education part of the core curriculum. So kudos to Wakefield again.
Excellent. Mr. Markham?
Thank you. A couple very brief things. One, as a participant, I also wanted to echo a great job on parenting AHA University. And really, there's a lot of time and energy and talent that goes into that. I know that was the brainchild of Dr. Zreik and some volunteers last year, and it's only getting better. So congratulations to the staff. I'd like to invite the community on Saturday, April 11th, to participate in the second annual Gator Gallop, which is the Greenwood Elementary School fundraiser. It is a walk or fun run around Lake Quinnipiac. Great way to kick off the spring. So there's a lot of sponsorship opportunities going around right now. Certainly sponsor a student or anyone who wants to run or walk even. So I'll be doing that as well if anyone would like to sponsor.
Can we ride?
The sponsor. No, there's no riding. We participate in the fun run for the kids, or the full run, or the walk for those of us who won't be fun running or running, but walking. But nonetheless, Saturday, April 11th, the Gator Gallop around Lake Quinnipiac to support the PTO at the Greenwood School. And speaking of Greenwood, just a point of neighborhood pride, the superintendent mentioned Paige Dubé and her work. She's a Greenwood alumni and a great and a great kid. So congratulations to her as well.
well said.
Just briefly, these pieces that the administration's writing about the budget, are those posted somewhere other than in the item?
No, but I was going to post them on my blog.
Yeah, I think they're really nice pieces, and
Okay, sure, that's a good suggestion. Yep.
I just have two things. This weekend is the senior show, Friday night and Saturday night at the Galvin. That's always a great time. I think that the kids display their talents very nicely. And then, unashamedly, I just want to promote the fact that I am riding for the Best Buddies Challenge on May 30th. It's a 100-mile bike ride from the JFK Library to Hyannisport. And my sponsor page is open on bestbuddieschallenge.org.
Can I just?
Yes.
I don't want to upstage you. But
Oh, yeah.
But I will.
I'm jumping in Lake Quinnipiac again.
Yeah, please sponsor my plunge. On April 14th, which is our next school committee meeting, the new principal of the Galvin School will be here. There will be a reception for him. at the school for people to meet with him, parents and teachers, and then he will be coming to the school committee meeting that evening to meet all of you and for you to ask him questions. I know he's really excited about coming back. I have had to tell him many times he's not yet employed by the Wakefield Public Schools, and that he does have to finish his commitment to Hanover, but it just speaks to his real excitement about wanting to come home and wanting to work in Wakefield. So, you know, just to remind you, if you could stop by, but you'll have the opportunity to speak with him that evening on the 14th, so.
Great. Motion.
Move that the school committee adjourn their meeting of Tuesday, March 24th, 2015.
Second.
Made and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you and good night.
Chris.